It's time to talk about everybody's favorite time in law enforcement, FTO. Hey guys, what's going on? I hope everybody is having a fantastic week so far. So over the last couple videos, we've talked about the hiring process and we have talked about the academy. But what really happens the first time you put your uniform on and you hit the road? FTO is an interesting time because it's really the first time that you get to apply what you've learned on the streets. A big question a lot of people ask me, how much of the academy will you actually use on the road? To be honest, about 5%. 5%? I thought the academy was supposed to get you ready for the road. Hate to break it to you guys, but that's a little known secret that once you graduate from the academy, usually the first thing your FTO is going to tell you is to forget everything you learned in the academy. Then you'll learn how to really police. Remember guys, like I talked about in the other video, really the academy is, as far as building a house, the academy is just clearing the lot. That's it. FTO is basically pouring the concrete foundation of that lot. The academy does teach you things that you do need to know that are going to carry over, and like I said, are part of that 5%, and that would be things like building clearing, case laws, which if anything else you learn through the academy, case law is definitely something you're going to want to carry with you for the whole rest of your career. So yeah, believe it or not, like the really boring stuff that you learn in the academy is actually probably the most important. But the basics of the academy is basically like an umbrella of how you can do something, not necessarily how you should do something. I guess I'm trying to say not everything taught in the academy is practical when you're on the street. Standing there while you're giving somebody verbal commands to bend over, put their hands behind their back while you go over there and gently handcuff them does not always work. Your FTO should be teaching you techniques like speed cuffing, joint locks, how to gain control of somebody, and really good FTOs will actually teach you ground fighting. The biggest thing to remember is that most police academies serve multiple agencies. There could be 20 different agencies that send 2 or 3 people and you're all part of this one big class. Unless you go somewhere like the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department where they have their own academy. Most places are not like that. So what exactly is FTO? FTO stands for Field Training Officer. I think they should call it FTP for Field Training Program, but it's always just referred to as FTO. I've seen it last anywhere from 6 weeks to about 20 weeks, really just depends on the department. Usually when you start FTO, you are assigned to a senior officer that has some sort of FTO certification. However, that's not always the case. Sometimes they are just going to put you with somebody that has a lot of experience, but doesn't necessarily have an FTO certification. Usually your FTO is going to have anywhere between at least 2 to 5 years. They prefer to use people that have at least 5 years on the job before they are teaching other people, because even at 2 years in this job, you really still don't know exactly what you're doing. You don't know what you're capable of, you don't know what you're not capable of doing. So 2 years is that's kind of reaching for straws. As far as the department's liability, if they're using FTOs that only have 2 years of experience, that's kind of a stretch. And the FTO program is usually broken down into one of 2 ways. Either they grade you by the week or they grade you by a phase. And a phase is usually 2 weeks put together. So with the last department I was with, they actually had a total of 7 phases, but it started with phase 0. And most weeks or phases are going to have some sort of a test at the end of it to make sure that you are keeping up with what you need to know and learning at a rate that you need to learn. Now usually phase 0 or phase 1 is your observation phase. That's right, you're basically a paid ride along. So your job is basically just to sit there, shut up, listen, take notes, and just do what your FTO asks you to do. Now I don't think that you're going to get off easy though, because a lot of times in your first couple of weeks the FTO is going to have you write everything down. A lot of them will just throw you into it. Now keep in mind, nothing I'm saying is set in concrete because every place is different. But with the last department I was at, your first 2 weeks, which was your first phase, you basically just rode and you watched. But after an FTO asks you, hey, I need you to get this information from this person, a good FTO will walk you through the process. There are some FTOs that just kind of expect people to know what to do, but if you've never worked in a law enforcement capacity and you don't understand really the techniques of investigation, that's really placed on the FTO, and they need to be teaching that. Some people are just natural at this job. Some people are just people person. They get into this job, they know exactly what questions to ask. But when it pertains to law enforcement, that's very rare. So don't feel bad if you're not like immediately getting it right out of the box. Just take your time, learn what you need to learn, pay attention to your FTO, and if you can, try to get in with other FTOs. You know, hopefully you're not just stuck with one person that does things one way. You know, when I went through FTO, I had 4 different FTOs, so I got to see a multitude of ways to work, a particular call before it was my turn to do it on my own. So once you are out of phase 0 or phase 1 at your department, you get the keys. And really at this point, this is going to be a test. As soon as your FTO starts letting you drive, they're going to expect you to kind of have a general idea of where you're going. We used to have an acronym in the city that was called NEAR, N-E-E-R. And NEAR basically stood for Northeast Even Right. If you're going north or you're going east, the even number houses are going to be on the right side. And that helps you in a multitude of ways. If you guys can form some sort of acronym for your particular jurisdiction, it will help you immensely. Especially if you get like a burglary in progress. You don't want to show up at the address with lights and sirens blaring. You want to park down the road. So knowing your house numbers will help you strategically park where you're out of sight. It'll kind of show you how you need to walk up to the house. It's to keep you safe. And there might be some ways that your FTOs mess with you a little bit. I remember one night we were riding down the road, and me and my FTO, I'd actually done ride-alongs with him when I was a teenager. So we're riding down the road and we're having some deep philosophical conversation. Well, amidst this conversation, he yells at the top of his lungs, "Stop, we're getting shot at." So of course I hit the brakes after a couple seconds pause. I didn't know what was going on. Hit the brakes, put it in park. I'm like getting out of my car and pulling out my gun at the same time. And he says, hold on. What block of what street are we on? And I was like, 2200 block of such and such. And he's like, good, let's keep going. So we're not getting shot at? He's like, no, I just wanted you to know where you were at. And I remember it wasn't really funny at the time. I was kind of irritated. I was like, dude, why would you do that? And I'll never forget what he said. He said, are you gonna tell somebody that's shooting at you to stop because you don't know where you're at? And I have never forgotten that. There are going to be moments in your FTO program that will stay with you for the length of your career. What sucked about my FTO program, mine got progressively harder. My very first FTO, she was on her phone all the time. She didn't really care what I did. I liked running traffic, so I was making traffic stop after traffic stop. She didn't really care as long as it wasn't like an hour before the end of shift, because that way if we got into something deeper, she didn't want to stay over. But I was so gung-ho, I wanted to get out there, I wanted to stop everybody, and on and on. So next FTO was a little bit harder. Then I had this guy, and then my last FTO, if I would go 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, he was talking about slow down. This guy was like 3 years older than dirt and wanted me to kind of tone things down. And I understand as a young 20-year-old police officer, you're going to be amped up, you're going to be anxious and ready to work. And it was nice to kind of have somebody bring you down. You know, at that time, I didn't like that, of course. I didn't like somebody trying to tell me that I can't be the police. But now in retrospect, I understand where they were coming from, and it really helped me kind of chill out. So as you progress through the FTO process, more and more responsibility is going to be added onto you. Now, towards the end of your FTO period, usually your last week or your last phase, your FTO is not going to say a thing. They're going to sit in the passenger seat, and all they're going to do is observe you. Now keep in mind, they are grading you every week. Every day they should be doing some sort of paperwork on you, but maybe at your department they do it weekly. FTOs have what are called daily observation reports, or DORs. So if you do something really good for that day, they give you a good mark. If you do something to royally screw up on a crawl, they're going to mark that too. Remember, the FTO's job is not to be your friend, not to be your brother. They are your trainer. That's it. They're not there to be your buddy. So assuming that you have all your ducks in a row and you're doing what you're supposed to, and you do fantastic on your last week or two, and you graduate the FTO program, now you get your very own key to your car, and welcome to police work. Last month was 10 years for me, and I can tell you it has been an incredible ride the last 10 years. I have learned so much over the past 10 years, and there's still so much to learn. You know, when I was talking about building a house, clearing the land and pouring the foundation, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I only have like a frame and some drywall and insulation up. My house is still not complete. Your house will never be complete until you retire. This job is about constant learning, constant adapting. You're never going to know everything. But a good officer will study, will stay up to date with case law, and know what their boundaries are. That's the biggest thing. If you know what your legal boundaries are, then you know how to do your job. If you're not sure about the laws, you're going to be hesitant, and you're going to be, as far as I'm concerned, useless. So there you have it, guys. That is it. That's pretty much all as far as the FTO program. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comment section below and I will try to answer them accordingly. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'm going to be doing a private live stream tonight. So if you guys are interested, sign up on Patreon. Let's have a little one-on-one chat. And I will see you tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks again for joining me, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your week and I will see you guys very, very soon.